13.4 million American households had their electricity shut off last year. That's not a projection. That's the first ever federal count of utility disconnections released by the U.S. Energy Information Administration this April. And it's the highest number ever recorded in this country. But here's what nobody's connecting. The same Federal Reserve research that tracked the 2008 housing collapse documented something very specific about how American households actually go broke. They don't default on everything at once. They default in a specific order. Credit cards first, then auto loans, then utilities, then student loans, and mortgages, because shelter is the last thing people give up. Mortgages come dead last. That order is not opinion. It's published in a New York Fed staff report and in 15 years of TransUnion payment hierarchy research. And right now, 4 out of those 5 categories are at or near record highs. So today, we're ranking the data that proves a record number of Americans have stopped paying their bills and explaining exactly why mortgages are next. If you own a home, you need to understand what FHA delinquency just did. If you're trying to buy, you need to understand what Lennar's CEO just admitted on his earnings call. And if you're sitting on a property thinking about selling in 2026, what Intercontinental exchange mortgage technology released 3 weeks ago is going to change your timeline. Because foreclosure inventory in this country just hit a 6-year high, and the people defaulting today are not the people you think they are. Most people think of debt as one big pile. You owe what you owe, and when you can't pay, you can't pay. That's not how it actually works inside an American household balance sheet. In 2016, the New York Fed published Staff Report number 732. It's called Determinants of Mortgage Default and Consumer Credit Use, and it was later published in the Journal of Money, Credit, and Banking. The researchers tracked millions of consumers across the 2008 collapse, and they documented exactly which debts people stop paying first when money gets tight. TransUnion has been running the same research independently since 2010. 6 separate studies, 15 years of data, tens of millions of consumers. The conclusion is the same every single time. There is a hierarchy. People protect the debts that hurt the most to lose. In normal times, it goes like this. They pay the auto loan first because you lose your car, you lose your job. They pay the mortgage next because you lose your house, you lose everything. They pay the credit card third because the credit card is easier to walk away from. Utilities and student loans float in the middle, depending on the household. But here's where it gets interesting. During the 2008 collapse, that hierarchy flipped. TransUnion documented it. Starting in the first quarter of 2008, American consumers started paying their credit cards before their mortgages. The spread between credit card delinquency and mortgage delinquency moved 122 basis points in 24 months. By June of 2010, mortgage delinquencies were running 118 basis points higher than credit card delinquencies among consumers who held both. Translation: people gave up on their houses while still paying Visa. The reason they did it is simple. When your house is underwater, the credit card is more valuable than the mortgage. The credit card keeps the lights on. The mortgage just keeps a depreciating asset. This is the framework that explains everything happening in the data right now. And it's the framework competitors covering this story are missing entirely. Let me show you where the bottom 4 debt categories sit today, according to primary source data filed in the last 90 days. Credit cards. The New York Fed's Household Debt and Credit Report for the fourth quarter of 2025, released February 10, 2026, shows 12.7% of all credit card debt is now 90 days or more past due. The 2008 peak was 13.7%. We are 100 basis points away from the worst credit card stress reading in modern American history. And unemployment is 4.3%. In 2010, when card delinquencies hit that peak, unemployment was 9.8%. Say it with me. Wait, it gets worse. Auto loans. Fitch Ratings tracks subprime auto loan delinquency through asset-backed securities data. Their January 2026 reading shows subprime 60-plus day delinquency near 6.9%. That's not a cycle high. That's the highest reading in 32 years of data. Higher than 2008, higher than 2009, higher than every prior recession on record. The average new car buyer with a trade-in is now $7,183 underwater on their old loan, rolling that negative equity into a new loan with an average payment of $932 a month. Utilities. That 13.4 million shutoff figure from the EIA is just the electricity number for 2024. Add in 1.7 million natural gas disconnections. The National Energy Assistance Directors Association reports that household utility debt has climbed from $17.5 billion at the end of 2023 to roughly $25 billion by the end of 2025. 1 in 6 American households is now behind on their energy bill. Student loans. Payments resumed in October 2023. The federal on-ramp expired in October 2024. And in the first reporting period after that on-ramp closed, 9.6% of student loan balances went 90 days delinquent. 1 million borrowers were just transferred to the Department of Education's default resolution group. The New York Fed estimated more than 9 million borrowers would see credit score drops between 87 and 171 points. The national average FICO score has already dropped 2 points year over year, the first decline in a decade. 4 categories, all at or near record highs, all before mortgages have meaningfully turned. That is exactly what 2007 looked like. If this is the kind of breakdown you want before everybody else is talking about it, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Not the regular subscribe, the bell. YouTube doesn't show you new videos from channels you subscribe to anymore unless that bell is on. We do one of these every single week, and the next one is going to surprise you. In the second quarter of 2008, the New York Fed published a now famous set of delinquency maps. They documented that bank credit cards' 60-plus day delinquency rates had risen in 60% of U.S. counties over the prior 12 months. 18 months later, mortgage 90-day delinquency rates had risen in 74% of U.S. counties. The card cascade led the mortgage cascade by roughly 6 quarters. The Federal Reserve Board confirmed this lag in a research note published November 24, 2025. The note is titled, "A Note on Recent Dynamics of Consumer Delinquency Rates." It states plainly that credit card and auto delinquencies have, quote, increased to levels not observed since the Great Financial Crisis, and that they function as leading indicators of mortgage stress. So here's the math example that matters. In 2007, a household earning $60,000 a year carried roughly $11,000 in credit card debt at 14% interest. Today, that same household earns about $80,000 a year, but carries $17,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest. Their minimum payment has gone from $220 a month to $510 a month. That extra $290 a month doesn't show up in any economic statistics. It just disappears from their ability to absorb the next shock. And the next shock is already showing up in the mortgage data. The Mortgage Bankers Association released their fourth quarter 2025 National Delinquency Survey on February 12, 2026. Total mortgage delinquency rose to 4.26%. That's up 28 basis points year over year. The headline number is not catastrophic, but what's underneath it is. FHA delinquency just hit 11.52%. That's the highest reading since the second quarter of 2021 during the COVID disruption. FHA borrowers are first-time buyers. They're lower-income households. They're the marginal buyers. And under the payment hierarchy we explained in Act 1, they default first. They're already there. And once again, wait, it gets worse. The internal flow data is rolling exactly the way it rolled in 2007. 30-day delinquencies actually ticked down 5 basis points, but 60-day delinquencies jumped 16 basis points, and 90-day delinquencies jumped another 16. That pattern, the front bucket shrinking while the back buckets grow, means borrowers are not curing. They are progressing into deeper delinquency. Intercontinental Exchange Mortgage Technology released their March 2026 Mortgage Monitor data on April 24th. Active foreclosure inventory in the U.S. just hit 273,000 properties. That's the highest number since February 2020, a 6-year high. Foreclosure starts are up 17% year over year. Foreclosure sales are up 21% year over year. And here's the part nobody is reporting. The cure rate on 90-plus day delinquent loans has dropped more than 40% year over year. Borrowers who fall behind are no longer climbing back out. ATTOM Data Solutions published the Q1 2026 U.S. foreclosure market report on April 16th. 118,727 properties with foreclosure filings in the first quarter alone. That's up 26% year over year. It's the 12th consecutive month of annual increases. The 5 worst states by foreclosure rate are Indiana, South Carolina, Florida, Delaware, and Illinois. The 5 worst metros are Lakeland, Florida, Punta Gorda, Florida, Columbia, South Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Macon, Georgia. If you own property in any of these metros, the foreclosure pipeline in your zip code is loading right now. And here's the take that's going to upset some people. The 2008 collapse wasn't caused by Wall Street. Wall Street made it worse. The 2008 collapse was caused by the same household balance sheet cascade that is happening right now, in real time, right in front of us. The credit cards broke first, the autos broke second, the utilities broke third, the mortgages broke last. We're sitting at exactly that point in the sequence, except this time, the Federal Reserve has told you it's coming in a published research note. The banks have told you in the earnings filings. And the data is on the New York Fed's website. The only question left is whether the labor market holds long enough to break the chain. And labor market data is the most revised data series the government publishes. If you think we're wrong, tell us why in the comments. We read them. And if you think we're right, share this video with one person who owns a home or is thinking about buying one in the next 12 months. Hit the like button too. It's a small thing, but it tells the algorithm to show the video to more people who actually need to see it. And you don't have to take our word for any of this. The companies with the most exposure to American consumer credit are telling you in regulator-filed financial statements what they're seeing. Capital One reported their fourth quarter 2025 results on January 22, 2026. Their provision for credit losses jumped 57% in a single quarter to $4.1 billion. Their full year 2025 provision was $20.7 billion. That's $8.9 billion more than the prior year. Capital One has the heaviest exposure to subprime credit cards and subprime auto loans of any major U.S. bank. And they have just told the SEC they expect a tidal wave of losses. Wells Fargo's first quarter 2026 report, filed April 14th, shows their commercial net loan charge-offs are up 71% year over year. JP Morgan's first quarter 2026 report, same date, shows a measured uptick in consumer reserves, while CEO commentary calls the consumer, quote, resilient. That split between Capital One and JP Morgan is the most important signal in the entire banking system right now. It tells you the pain is concentrated. The bottom half of the income distribution is breaking. The top half is fine. Now look at the home builders. Lennar reported their first quarter fiscal 2026 results on March 12th. Revenue down 13% year over year. Average sales price down from $408,000 to $374,000. Gross margin compressed from 18.7% to 15.2%. And here's the headline number CEO Stuart Miller disclosed. The largest home builder in the United States is now spending about 14% of every home's sales price on mortgage rate buydowns and incentives. On a $400,000 home, that's $56,000 of margin Lennar is giving up just to keep buyers at the table. D.R. Horton's CEO Paul Romanowski said on his earnings call that incentives, quote, increased during the second quarter, and we expect incentives to remain elevated. These are not marketing decisions. These are the largest home builders in America paying buyers out of their own pockets to close transactions because the buyers can't afford the homes at posted prices and current mortgage rates. Let's get specific about who's exposed to what. If you own a home outright or you're locked in a mortgage rate below 4% before 2022, you're insulated from the immediate cascade. Your monthly payment is fixed, your equity is high, your risk is limited to the value of your home if you choose to sell into a softening market. The biggest threat you face isn't foreclosure. It's that home prices in your zip code stop appreciating and your largest asset stops compounding. If you bought a home between 2022 and 2024 using FHA financing or with less than 10% down, you're in the highest risk cohort in this data set. FHA delinquency at 11.52% is your cohort. You are the marginal buyer the Mortgage Bankers Association is measuring. If anything in your household income destabilizes, a job loss, a medical event, an auto insurance hike, you have very little cushion. Run your numbers. Know your loss mitigation options before you need them. If you're trying to buy in 2026, you're in the strongest negotiating position any buyer has had since 2011. Lennar will pay 14% of your purchase price in incentives. D.R. Horton has confirmed incentives will stay elevated. ATTOM is reporting 14,020 bank repossessions in the first quarter alone, a 45% year-over-year jump. Inventory is coming. Do not chase. Do not stretch. The seller who is desperate in October 2026 is going to be more desperate in February 2027. If you're trying to sell, your timeline is the most exposed of anyone watching this video. Cotality, formerly CoreLogic, reports that 1.1 million U.S. homes are already in negative equity, up 15% year over year. The average homeowner lost $13,400 in equity last year. If you need to be out by a specific date, price for liquidity now, not aspiration. The buyer pool is shrinking, and the foreclosure pipeline is filling at the same time. Tell us where you are in this picture in the comments. Are you the insulated owner, the FHA borrower running tight numbers, the patient buyer, or the seller racing the clock? Subscribe if you want the next video. We're ranking the 5 U.S. metros where the FHA delinquency surge is hitting hardest right now. And the data is going to shock you. Click the bell so you don't miss it. Here's what we want you to remember when you walk away from this video. The 2008 collapse didn't start with the housing market. It ended with the housing market. It started with the same cascade that is happening right now. Credit cards, autos, utilities, then mortgages. The Federal Reserve has now told you, in writing, that the leading indicators are flashing. The banks have told you, in their earnings, that they're building loss reserves at the fastest pace since the financial crisis. The homebuilders have told you, in their cost structures, that the marginal buyer is breaking. This is the slowest motion housing cascade in modern American history. Everything you need to see it coming is already on the table. The only question is whether you're going to act on it before everybody else does. Thanks for watching, good looking. If you got value out of this one, watch the video on screen right now. We think you'll want to see it. See you next time.